Hey guys, what's communications? Welcome to my review of Surviving the Game. Surviving the Game is a 1996 action thriller, because there's a decent amount of action in this, but pretty much is a little bit more of a thriller, kind of a, another iteration of Most Dangerous Game, like Hard Target. I definitely say I prefer Hard Target over this. I think it's a more entertaining movie. I think it has more action, better lead. Ice-T isn't terrible in this. I've seen worse leads. To be honest, he kind of surprised me. At the end of the day, I didn't mind him, but for me personally, I think the film could be so much better with a lead that can actually fight. And the director, Ernest Dickerson, who I like his work. I really enjoy Demon Knight, Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight. He directed it a year after. He directed that before he directed that after Surviving the Game. And I don't mind the film he did with Adam Sandler and Damon Wayans, Bulletproof. I actually think that's a pretty fun flick. A little bit. I think it's one of Adam Sandler's more underrated movies, to be honest. And but after that, he didn't do that much. He did a movie called Ambush. Did something called Blind Faith with Charles S. Dutton, Courtney B. Vance. He directed that shitty movie Bones with Snoop Dogg. And the last movie he did was Never Die Alone with DMX. So. But he has style. I mean, he definitely knows how to direct a film, and he shows it in this film. There's some really unique, cool shots. Like a look at the inside of a barrel of a gun, which I thought was really inventive. And so he definitely knows how to shoot a film with style and with he adds his own unique touch to his films. He started out as a cinematographer for like Spike Lee movies. He was a cinematographer for The Brother from Another Planet. He was a cinematographer for Crush Groove. He was a cinematographer for Enemy Territory. He was a cinematographer for Eddie Murphy's Raw. Cinematographer for this movie called Fright House, just a really low budget piece of crap. Cinematographer for Do the Right Thing, School Days, Death by Temptation, Mo Better Blues, Jungle Fever, Malcolm X. Cinematographer for a lot of Spike Lee movies, and he was a cinematographer for some episodes of Tales from the Dark Side. Actually, some of my favorites: Word Processor of the Gods, which is based on a Stephen King story, and he directed some TV movies like Future Sport, a few episodes. He directed an episode of Masters of Horror, The V Word. Directed an episode of Dexter called Swim Deep. Directed 2 episodes of The Walking Dead. Actually, more than that. I directed about... Seems like he directed about 6. And then he directed more of Dexter. So... He's kept busy, but he hasn't done anything since 2012. He also directed some of the episodes of The Wire as well, which I'm never really that familiar with. He began his career as cinematographer on music videos for Bruce Springsteen, Anita Baker, Miles Davis. And then he went on to film John Sayles' Brother from Another Planet. So anyway, that's a little bit of backstory on Ernest Dickerson. Now the film itself, Surviving the Game, it was written by Dylan Brunson. And the reason why I'm mentioning Dylan Brunson is because... which I think it's Dylan Brunson or Eric Lambert, because I know it mentions our Eric Lambert on Surviving the Game writer. Screenwriter Eric Burnt. So I guess Eric Burnt must have been not Lambert, but Eric Burnt must have been Eric Burnt wrote the film. Then why is Wikipedia fucking up and listing somebody else? Wikipedia lists Dylan Brunson as writing the movie, but he did not write the movie. Eric Burnt did. So, yeah, fucked up. Eric Burnt did, not Dylan Brunson. Anyway, even as the screenwriter talks about, this is actually his first screenplay. Eric Burnt, this is the first screenplay he ever wrote, and he had to actually go on to write some more movies. He went on to write Virtuosity with Denzel Washington, which I like that one. He also wrote the screenplay for Romeo Must Die. He wrote the story for Highlander Endgame. And, yeah, sadly, also, he wrote the screenplay for the Hitcher remake. But, hey, win some, you lose some. And then the last film he wrote was a movie called The Echo, which I've never heard of. And he directed Bachelor Party Vegas, and he also wrote the screenplay. So you gotta get busy. You gotta get work somehow. But I'd have to say, for a first, time writing a screenplay, I thought he did a pretty good job. I really did. Now the movie pretty much did nothing when it came out. It was made for about $7,400,000, and it made maybe $200 extra at the end of its run. So it really didn't do anything. Critics didn't like it. You have like a 26% Rotten Tomatoes, and I disagree with that. I think the cast is great. The supporting cast is wonderful. Rutger Hauer, Charles Dutton, Gary Busey. Even though Gary Busey's not in it as much as he should be, in my opinion. And even the screenwriter even mentioned that in an interview online. He even says that I wish I would have killed him off later instead of having him die first, which really sucks because he plays this character, this doctor character, who psychiatrist named Doc Hawkins, a CIA psychologist, and you get to really know this guy. You get to know his history. It's this really great monologue. And to have him die first was really, really lame. And even the screenwriter acknowledges that. So, even he looks back at what he did with killing off Gary Busey and be like, I made a mistake. But I think Rutger Hauer plays a great lead in this as this sadistic sociopath, Thomas Burns. And the score by Stuart Copeland, I liked alright. There were some parts I didn't really necessarily care for in the beginning with the stuff with the homeless people. But as the film went on, I thought the score grew on me. And cinematography by Bohan Bazelli was really well done at points. As well as the editing by Samuel D. Pollard. And of course the direction by Ernest Dickerson I thought was really, really fairly decent. Now, but Ice-T, like I mentioned, I think he's a decent lead, and I can deal with him. But at the end of the day, I would have preferred somebody else, like Michael J. White or Mark Dacascos, or somebody who can fight. Stallone would be awesome in a movie like this. Somebody who can fight and is a little bit more believable as this sort of all-around badass. You didn't really get the interpretation that he was a former military guy or anything. He was just a mechanic, and so now he's doing all this, stuff using his brains and his smarts. And you didn't really get the idea that this guy was really that smart. So, that's part of the screenplay, but, I didn't mind it because at the end of the day, I really did feel for Ice-T's character, and I really wanted him to make it out of this alive because, as he says, he wakes up in the morning, it's like, it's another fucked up day. And, just at the beginning of the movie is brutal. Like, he loses his dog gets run over by this asshole, and the asshole gets mad at him, and he's trying to, pick up his dead dog and get out of the street, and the guy's like, getting mad at him, and, he picks up his dead dog, takes it out of the street. He's friends with this homeless guy, a friend of his, Jeff Corey, Hank. He's his best friend, and, he also dies. So, and he dies pretty much after they have this scene where Ice-T's, we're hungry. He goes and he finds a gun in the trash, and Hank is like, no, you check the barrel first. You gotta check the barrel first. You never know. There might be something in the barrel. Press can fire. Blow up. And so then you find out that he ends up, they're hungry, and so Ice-T's like, fuck this, man, I'm gonna get some food. And so he goes in and goes to this, sort of like a meat house. He's got a thing of meat. And you see this random ass fucking security guard who's like literally the most fucked up, sadistic security guard I've ever seen in my life. I mean, this guy is fucking crazy, man. I'm trying to find the link of line of dialogue that this guy does. It's just like, what the hell is this guy's problem? It's like, I understand, you are breaking the law, but Jesus Christ. The cops all like, just came out of nowhere. And he's like, I'm gonna kill me someone tonight. He just grabs Ice-T. He's got like a gun. He's like, Ice-T's tried to pull a gun on him. He grabs the gun and he's like, I'm gonna kill me someone tonight. You know, so this guy is like sadistic. He's like a fucking terrible security guard. And, because he's fucking bored, so he wants to kill somebody. And it's a fun scene though, because I like, it's so absurd. Hurt you? No, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm gonna kill me somebody tonight. And I like the line that Ice-T has too, where he's like, I'm gonna make me a popsicle. I'm gonna make me a copsicle. You know. I think that's what he did. Like, I'm trying to find the link here. Some of the one-liners weren't, yeah. I should shove this up your ass and make me a copsicle. He's got the cop's billy club in his hand. Just shove this up your ass and make me a copsicle. So, that was pretty fun. But then directly after that, then his friend dies. And then, because it was as soon as he said, man, another fucked up day. You know, then it just gets even more fucked up because his friend dies. And then he ends up meeting with this guy who supposedly, you think this guy, Walter Cole, is a nice guy. And after losing his friends and his pet dog on the same day, Mason attempts to commit suicide. Jack Mason is Ice-T's character. And a soup kitchen worker, Walter Cole, saves him, Charles S. Dutton. And Charles S. Dutton does a good job of acting here, because he's acting like he's this guy, used to be just like him, and I was in the shit like you, and I got my life together, I found a job, and you don't want to waste it. But really you find out he's in on this hunting game sort of thing with Rutger Hauer. But he kindly, he refers him to this businessman Thomas Burns, played by Rutger Hauer, who kindly offers Mason a job as a hunting guide. Despite his misgivings, the lure of a well-paying job causes Mason to accept. And there's a fun scene where Rutger Hauer's like, I don't know, you don't really look like you're in the best of shape. You're a smoker, for one. And it's like, oh man, I could do it. I could tell. I just need this job, man. Hey, that treadmill over there, man. I can run. I was like, okay, all right. Run on that treadmill for an hour, and I'll give you $20. Yeah, so he ends up running. He barely gets it done, and he gives it $20. And somehow the $20 that he got was enough to get a hotel room in this really cheap hotel. Which is pretty funny. There's some pretty funny scenes of dialogue where the guy's like, what do you want do you want the executive suite or whatever? It's like, yeah, just one with working TV. And of course he goes in and the TV doesn't work, so he turns on the radio. And I like the hotel clerk. It's like, hey, wash your nasty ass before you get in that bed. Make sure you wash your nasty ass. You better wash that nasty ass. So he washes his nasty ass in the tub, and you see, that he's got scars all over his back, like burns, and you're like, okay, what the hell happened? And you find out later, because you keep hearing this stuff where he says that he killed his family, and his wife and his kid. And so what happens is he accepts the job. Rutger Hauer comes in the hotel, gives him some clothes, to wear. They fly to a remote cabin surrounded by hundreds of acres of woods, and Mason meets the rest of the hunting party, all of whom paid $50,000 for the privilege of being there. The party includes Doc Hawkins, the founder of the hunt, a psychotic psychiatrist who specializes in psychological assessments, Cole, John Griffin, a Texas oil man, played by John C. McGinley, a wealthy executive named Derek Wolfe Sr. and his son Derek Wolfe Jr., F. Murray Abraham, and William McNamara, who was at first unmindful of the true purposes of the hunt, like I mentioned earlier. The first night, all the men are eating a nice dinner and engaging in a conversation. Mason receives a pack of cigarettes from Hawkins and learns a little history about the man. And this history scene is great. Now, I show the clip, but I probably don't want to copyright claim, so I'm going to try to do my best to actually do this scene justice. So, if I break out my best acting here, because this is a really great monologue by Gary Busey. I know more about you than you would even think, Mason. Probably you do, but you don't give a shit about you. Now ask me something. Ask me anything you want. Alright, how'd you get that fucking scar up on your eye? It's like, this? He points at the scar on his eyes. I refer to that as my birthmark. On my 8th birthday, my father brought me a bulldog. Fat little bulldog. I named him Prince Henry Stout. He was strong. He would have chased my pet turkey. He would have chased a squirrel up a tree. I raised him. Trained him. I fed him. I grew him. I took care of him. I love that dog. I love that dog more than anything in the world. I love that dog. My father gave me a handful of cherry bombs and M80s and said, "You're going to train this dog to be a protector." So every Saturday afternoon, I got behind a little dummy that my dad built, and I tossed cherry bombs and M80s at the dog. Boom, boom! The dog was scared at first, but after a while, he got on the dummy. He got the dummy ripping it apart. The head was off. His shirt was gone. So 13 years old, birthday time. I got me a 12-gun shotgun. We're going hunting. I was so excited. We went out to the clearing in the woods, and my dad laid his gun down. He took my gun. He laid it down and he said, "Son, today you're going to learn to control your emotions. You're going to do things that some men are not able and unwilling to do. Follow me." I followed my dad, and we were running this clap of trees, and there was a corral built, and there was Prince Henry Stout chained in the middle of the corral. My dad took out a pocket full of cherry bombs, put them in my hand, and he said, "Get in the crawl. Here's a lighter. I want you to light those cherry bombs and throw them at the prince. You're going to face manhood. You're going to fight that dog to the death. He's going to kill you, or you're going to kill him." Now, he was on me. He was on me like a flies on shit. I had no chance. I got my arm up between his teeth on my neck, and whop! Went down in the mud, rolled over. Dog is fighting, biting, scratching, kicking, and I'm screaming, crying, grabbing to run, to stand up with following my elbow on him. And then I hear his neck break. He's dead. He's not breathing. He's not biting. And I'm covered in blood. And I stand up and I wipe the blood off. And I licked it. And my dad said, "Welcome to manhood." That's why this is a birthmark. So, I don't know how well I did that, but I tried to do my best, to do the scene that, the best justice there. Anyway, great monologue, excellent performance, right, Gary Busey. And I would be surprised if it's really a true story. That's really an example of something that actually happened in Gary Busey's life. That's his childhood right there. Anyway, there's also some fun scenes around the dinner table where you have Burns is being really weird with some food, like the pig, and he's like, "Life's true pleasures are so unpredictable. I'd say cherish the moment for what it is. Observe your food. Smell it. Touch it. Put your mind into it. And when you're finally ready, consume it. Slowly." And then Jack Mason's like, "Do your way, I'll do mine." I like the whole thing where he says that he's killed his... He basically says that he killed his family, and John C. McGinley loses it. And he's like, "Well, how did you feel? How did you feel? Like, how did you feel when you killed your family? Huh? You sick?" He was like, "I came in my pants." So anyway, so what happens is Hawkins learns history about Doc. Doc Hawkins. He learns history about Hawkins. And Mason, Mason learns history about Doc Hawkins. Reads Brutus' story from his childhood. The Prince Henry Stout. And then the following morning, Mason is then awakened with a gun in his face by Cole, Charles Dutton, who explains that the men are not hunting any animals, but rather Mason himself. Mason is given a head start with only the time it takes for the others to eat breakfast, and Mason quickly flees the area, but comes to realization and turns back. The hunters finish their meal and set off after him. Wolf Jr. is horrified at the thought of killing a man, William McNamara, and I'm with him too, but he's pushed into it by his father. The hunters race off into the forest, but by now Mason has returned to the cabin in search of weapons. He finds none. Instead, he makes the disgusting discovery of a hunter's trophy room behind a locked door. The preserved heads of the victims of the previous hunts. And at the beginning of the film, you see a little bit of shots of these guys. This guy getting hunted down by a guy with a crossbow, which reminds me of stuff in Hard Target. And the whole stuff with the preserved heads remind me of Futurama. With the preserved heads of movie stars like William Shatner and and the first President Nixon and so forth. So anyway, Mason decides to burn it down using chemicals found in the room. The hunters quickly assume Mason has returned to the cabin. They go back. Wolf Sr. enters just as Mason lights up the cabin, engages in a fist fight with Hawkins out back, away from the others. Hawkins is knocked back into the cabin as the preserving agent explodes, killing him in a fiery inferno. Before that, he has a fun line of dialogue, where he's like, Hawkins has upper hand amidst Mason in a life or death brawl right outside a hunting lodge, which is now on fire. I like my meat rare. And then Mason tricks Hawkins, throws him into the lodge's trophy room, which is stocked with flammables. A second later, the room explodes. And he's like, try well done, bitch! So then he blows up, which is really too bad because they did that great story. I agree with the screenwriter. Screenwriter, even after the fact, like I said earlier, really expressed his doubts in killing off Gary Busey first. So anyway, Gary Busey dies, and then the Mason runs away. The hunt then resumes, and Mason begins to use his wits to beat the hunters, luring them into falsely planted lit cigarettes that lead him the wrong way. Mason manages to lure Griffin away from the others and takes him hostage. He's the one that really wanted to get Mason because he actually had lost his son. Some kind of thug guy shot him in a convenience store in a parking lot somewhere. And he's delusional and he's thinking that Ice-T did it. Thinking that Mason is the one that killed his son. And because he said, I killed my family, but he doesn't know the true story about it. He just assumes that he's, a psychopath and killed his family, and he wants him. He's like, he's mine, damn it, he's mine. And I'm the first one to shoot him, first one to get a shot at him. And he actually also has asthma too, John C. McGinley's character. So over the night, Mason learns why Griffin is taking part in the hunt. Years later, his daughter is murdered by a homeless man, and he's venting his rage. Mason, in turn, relays his own tragic tale of losing his family in an apartment fire. And that's where he comes with the idea. And I thought it was actually pretty decent acting by Ice-T, where he's telling the story about how he used to be a mechanic, used to be this guy who fixed things, and he kept putting off, fixing this apartment. It was a death trap, and he even was telling the owner that it was a death trap, and he just kept putting everything off and everything like that. And so sadly, he ended up because pretty much what happened is he ended up because he didn't put it off. He feels the blame for his family dying because there was a fire. He came home from work one night and the whole place was on fire, and he's all like, "This isn't my place. This can't be my place." And it's like, "It's not my apartment." And then it's like, "It was, but it was." And then he goes in and tries to save his family. It was too late and gets burned. So it's a really tragic story, and you really do feel for Ice-T's character, Jack Mason. And I think the script did a good job with the story and good performance by Ice-T in that one scene. So This leads Griffin to have a change of heart in the morning. Upon rescuing him, Griffin reveals his decision to not continue the hunting, but he's murdered by Cole to prevent any future legal conflicts. By now, with their numbers dwindling, the older hunters seem more intent on killing Mason. At one point, Mason sabotages one of their ATVs, causing it to explode, critically wounding Cole. I like some fun lines of dialogue where, even Cole says some good stuff like, "You know why we're going to find you, Mason? Because I could smell your stinking ass from here." Or Stevie Wonder could follow these tracks. And then other fun lines of dialogue like this. Some good one-liners. You're like, "Hey, Cole, your mama's up here." "Cole, your mama's up here." And so eventually he gets Cole, and he ends up blowing. Basically, he goes and tries to go on the ATV. It causes it to explode, critically wounding Cole. Literally, it blows his legs off in a decent practical effect. And Burns then chokes Cole to spare him from the pain. And in an interesting way, he chokes him with like 2 fingers. And as they pursue Mason, Wolf Jr. is killed in an accident when he falls down a ravine. And Wolf Sr. vows revenge. Pretty much just because the kid was pressured into this by his dumbass father, who pressured him into this stupid hunt to kill people, and his son didn't want to do it. His son would still be alive if you just let him go home, like he said. He said, "I want to go home and be with Mom" in some scenes. He wouldn't be dead, and you wouldn't be dead either. Well, you would still be dead, but at least your son wouldn't die. Because so you pressured him so much, so then he decided, no, I could do it, Dad. And so then he tries to go across this log that a Mason set up as a trap, and he ends up slipping, and he falls to his death, and a really shitty effect. A really bad green screen or blue screen. You could tell that it's fake. And you get to really see the bad acting of William McNamara. She was like, "Daddy! Daddy, help! Daddy! No! Daddy! Ah!" That's pretty much his performance, to be honest. So he dies. Wolf Sr. vows revenge. The second night sees Wolf Sr. and Mason fighting one-on-one with each other. Mason ends up being the victor, of course, because he's fighting with the old man. He's fighting with Sal Larry over here, F. Murray Abraham. It's not much of a fight. And, but had a fun line of dialogue where, just try to find the one-liner here, where Ice-T and F. Murray Abraham are fighting, and, okay, yeah. It's funny, like the IMDb page itself doesn't have certain quotes. So I have to look in, like, here's the one. He's like, Wolf Sr.'s like, "Die! Die! Die!" And then Mason just snaps his neck, and he's like, "Fuck that!" He's like, "Fuck that!" And then just snaps his neck. So eventually this leads now, what happens is, Burns ends up escaping to the city. He sets up Ice-T with a fake diversion with a plane. He blows up this plane, and he flies off in another plane. And of course, I like how Ice-T before, was yelling. It was like, "Burns! Burns!" What, Mr. Burns? I know he's an asshole. You're not going to find him, though. Anyway, he's too rich. So anyway, Burns escapes to the city, knowing that Mason will most likely be searching for him. Days later, Burns is back in Seattle, Washington, preparing to leave his current identity. Dresses up like a Russian concubine or some shit, hoping to escape both Mason and legal responsibilities from the disastrous hunt. But Mason has escaped the forest. He survived the explosion. He returns to the city and tracks him down. A quick fight ensues, a shaky cam because Ice-T can't fight. And Mason chooses not to kill him. Instead, he walks away. But Burns attempts to shoot Mason in the back. And taking to heart a lesson he learned from his old friend Hank, Mason blocked the barrel of Burns' gun, and it backfires on him, killing him as Mason walks out in the dark. It's a pretty badass way to end the movie. But the one thing... excuse me. What that was about. Well, the one thing that I could have... you could have seen the actual explosion. You just heard it. And you had one-liner. And he had this really cool... What I was talking about before is really cool, cinematography. That, before Burns realizes that there's something in the gun... the camera goes inside the gun and shows the cigarette butts that he put inside the gun. And I thought that was pretty cool, actually. I really like that shot. It's very ingenious. And then I like the bit of the score that plays the scene, after he does the whole thing, He aims the gun at Burns, bam! You just hear an explosion, and Jack Mason's like, bang! Like, before he has the gun, actually. And he's thinking about killing him, but then he's like, bang! And Mason's like, game over. Then he loads the gun, discards the bullets, drops it. Burns is like, it's my lucky day. Hey, Mason. Burns. There's something you should always do when you find a gun. Say goodbye. Always check the barrel. Boom! So it happens. You get blown up because you didn't check the barrel. And Rutger Hauer dies. And then it's the end of the movie. And, that's Surviving the Game, a 1994 action thriller. Good cast. Like I said, Ice-T's okay. I can deal with him, but I think a little bit of a better lead would probably work a little bit more. So he could do more in terms of fighting, not just sort of like, I'm going to make this ATV explode, I'm going to jump off this cliff, land in the river. In ways, it's kind of almost like First Blood. This guy's chasing after this guy in the wilderness, setting traps and stuff. But I think it's pretty underrated. I think it's a movie not very many people talk about, and I think that's too bad. I think it's got some good performances by Rutger Hauer, Gary Busey for the little bit that he's in. Ice-T does a commendable job. I like the plot. Doesn't really seem that far-fetched. Some rich fucks could easily do some of this twisted shit in the wilderness, in the middle of the boonies. Nobody would know about it. And preying on the homeless people, I mean, much like Our Target, you can understand why they go with that. They choose the homeless quotient for the people to prey upon and use for this pawn. Uses pawns for this deadly game. But yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I was surprised by this one. I always was curious about it. Heard some good things about it from a friend of mine. I liked the trailer, and so I enjoyed it. Wasn't perfect. I could have used a little bit more action, but Ice-T is not really that great at that. So they kind of just made it so he's more of the intelligent guy. He runs around and sets up traps and diversions and stuff. Mainly, I think what really makes it for me is Rutger Hauer and Charles Dutton and Gary Busey, John C. McGinley, and even F. Murray Abraham. Just a really nice ensemble cast of the villains. Even Hard Target didn't have that. It only had Lance Henriksen, Arne Vosloo. The rest of them were like, who cares? Can fodder. So this film had a little bit, had that going for it. But it didn't have Van Damme. Van Damme is better than Ice-T any day of the week. But anyway, I still enjoyed the movie, and I recommend it to people who are a fan of 90s action flicks, or if you liked Hard Target, give this a look sometime. Anyway, I really don't know what to say about Surviving the Game, so it was rated at 5 stars. I'm going to give it 4. I really did enjoy it. I mean, I'm going to give it like 1 last star because, like I said, it could use a little bit more action if it had a better lead, that was more than just commendable, who actually could physically fight, who could do, martial arts, who could add more to the proceedings. It would be a lot better film, but as it is, it's still an enjoyable movie, and I think it's still an underrated action thriller from the 90s. So anyway, folks, thanks for watching my review of Surviving the Game, and I will see you guys later. See ya.